tragedy occurs, today's lesson tells us to continue talking with God. He wants to dialogue with us about everything, even our doubts and fears. Job was a godly man. God described him to the devil as a perfect, blameless, and upright man. He lived a blessed life. The second verse in chapter 1 tells us that Job had 10 children. 10 was not symbolic of perfection, but of fullness or sufficiency. 7 of his children were sons. The number 7 was symbolic of perfection. So with 10 children, 7 of whom were sons, Job had all a man could ask for in a family. In addition, Job was enormously rich. Verse 3 lists his possessions, sheep and camels in the thousands. Owning one camel was a sign of wealth and status. To have thousands of camels suggests that Job was a caravan operator or a dealer in camels. So Job had 500 yoke of oxen. A yoke holds 2 oxen, thus 500 yoke means he owned 1,000 oxen. So taken together, these details tell us that Job was a highly successful, well-respected, happy, godly man. Yet, all that was about to change. And that brings us to our key verse for today, which reads, "Should we accept only good things from the hand of God and never anything bad?" So in all this, Job said nothing wrong. Job chapter 2, verse 10. The first 3 events wiped out Job's wealth, but the fourth, the death of all his children, broke his heart. The wind here implies a strong wind similar to that of a whirlwind or tornado. Job's sons and daughters were killed when the house fell on them. Evil and the devil are free to inflict harm and heartbreak only to the extent God allows. God didn't cause Job's problems to take place, but God did allow them. These tragedies caused Job to confront a question we still struggle with today. Is suffering a good enough reason to deny God's love or power? No. Despite his deep grief, Job proved his faith in God by praising him while confessing the loss he was feeling. Verse 22 shows that although Job grieved terribly, he didn't sin when he learned of his losses, nor did he sin later. Job did not let these disasters cause his faith in God to get off track. Instead, he fell down on the ground in worship as a sign of submitting himself to God's will. Job does not curse God, he simply despises the day he was born. This verse occurs a week after Job's silence. After Job's initial shock at his losses and reasons for grief, he had time to reflect, and during this time, his wife came and told him he must have done something that she wasn't aware of. She ordered him to quit trying to act righteous and curse God and die. Job broke his silence and expressed his bitterness and frustration over what happened to him and his family. Although his answer might seem to be toward his wife, it was more likely he was just responding to the situation. Some Christians still think that anger about injustice or the tragic unfairness of life is evidence of spiritual immaturity. The book of Job does not support that attitude. Job chapter 1 verse 8, chapter 2 verse 3, and chapter 42 verse 7 show God's positive view of Job as a righteous man both before and after the tragedies he went through. Here Job seems to be asking God, if I was to suffer like this, why was I born? Why didn't I come out of the womb, take a breath, and die? He was asking why he had to be born if he had to go through all this and come to this end. So here's our lesson. Few, if any, people live tragedy-free lives. Tragedy comes with the territory of living in a fallen world, in a world where sin and human error abound. Everyone is a potential recipient of some kind of tragedy, and we would do well to develop a faith that does not give up on God when tragedy occurs. God is with us when we celebrate on the mountain peaks of life and when we walk through that valley of the shadow of death. His guidance and his care are always at our disposal, and so we would do well to entrust our all, even our doubts, to God's care, and to dare to believe that God will work with people of goodwill to make tragedy's consequences serve a higher purpose. And when we do this, our faith will live and grow all the more when tragedy occurs.